Hello everyone. So in this lecture, we are going to see what is the root locus. So we will try to define what is a root locus. We will see what are the steps that are applied for sketching a root locus plot, and we will take up one or two examples. Basically, root locus is a graphical presentation of the closed two poles as a system parameters vary. So let's start with it. Okay. So as I said before, root locus is nothing but a graphical representation of the closed two poles as system parameters vary. Okay, so we can have multiple information from one single root locus plot, like information pertaining to stability, its damping, its transient response specifications, and so on. That's the advantage. Okay, so that those information will come as handy when we try to design a controller. Then we will be given an open loop plant, right, from which we know what are the open loop poles and open loop zeros, right? So it is to be noted that the open loop poles, they are independent of system gain. Say for example, 10 divided by s into s plus 10. Where are the open loop poles? At s equal to 0 and s equal to minus 10. Fine. So they are fixed, right? They are independent of gain k, right? But in the case of a closed loop system, the closed loop poles will be a function of the system gain. Okay, so if you want to find the closed loop poles, then it will be a function of system gain k, and we will have to factorize the characteristic polynomial. What is characteristic polynomial? The denominator of the closed loop transfer function. Denominator of the closed loop transfer function. Okay, so closed loop poles are difficult to find because we will have to factorize the characteristic polynomial. Okay, so that may not be possible always. Suppose your system is 10th order, right? How to factorize that? That may not be easy. Okay, maybe we can do up to a quadratic polynomial or a cubic order polynomial, right? Beyond that, it becomes a bit difficult, right? Further, the closed loop poles will change with respect to the system gain. Keep in mind, open loop plant is given, it is fixed, it is constant, right? Their poles are independent of the system gain, whereas the closed loop poles are a function of system gain. Let us take one example. Okay, let us take one example, right? So this shows a tracking camera, right? So we know what's the purpose of a tracking camera. It has to track a moving subject, right? So as the subject keeps on moving, it has to continuously track its movement, right? So this can be represented by a block diagram of this kind, which is shown here, right? K1 is the amplifier gain, and motor and the camera is represented by a transfer function K2 divided by S into S plus 10. We know that these two are in cascade, right? So what will be the forward path transfer function? Forward path transfer function will be G of S equals K1 K2 divided by S into S plus 10. Okay, I will call K1 K2 as another constant K. K divided by S into S plus 10. Where are the open loop poles? What is open loop plant? G of S, H of S. What is H of S here? H of S is 1. So your GSHS will be K divided by S into S plus 10. Okay. Where are the open loop poles? One is at S is equal to 0 and one is at S is equal to minus 10. So they are fixed. Okay. K is the variable gain here, right? We didn't fix the value of K, say 5 or 10. K is simply a variable gain, right? But open loop poles are constant and fixed. Now, what will be the closed loop transfer function? C by R. C by R will be what? C of S by R of S will be what? G divided by 1 plus GSHS. Okay, so if you do that, you will be getting K divided by S square K divided by S square plus 10S plus K. That will be the closed loop transfer function. Now, where are the closed loop poles? How can you find the closed loop pole location? They are given by the roots of the denominator of the closed loop transfer function. That means our characteristic polynomial is S square plus 10S plus K equal to 0. Or where will be the closed loop poles? Closed loop poles will be at S is equal to minus B plus minus root of B square minus 4AC divided by 2. Or you will get minus 5 plus minus root of 100 minus 4K by 4. Okay. So as K varies, what happens? The closed loop poles will change the location. Suppose K equal to 0. Where are my closed loop poles? It will become minus 5 plus minus 5. That means you will get 0 and minus 10. Okay, that is what is shown in this table. When K is 0, your open loop pole, closed loop poles are at -10 and 0, right? Now we increase the k, say k equal to 5. When k equal to 5, closed loop poles are at -9.47 and -0.53. So as you observe here, as k increases, what happens? The closed loop poles will shift their locations. They will change. Okay. So this has been plotted. Let us plot these closed loop pole locations. Okay, in the S plane. So you will see a plot like this. When k equal to 0, these are the poles. One at s equal to 0 and one at s equal to -10. When k equal to 5, the one is at -9.47, that is somewhere here, and one is at -0.53, like this. Okay. So at every instant, as k changes, the closed loop poles will move. Okay. One will move. This will keep moving like this. This will keep moving like this as the gain k changes. Okay. Now, when k is equal to 25, what happens? Both the poles are at the same point, -5, right? Both the poles, S1, close to poles, S1 and S2 are same as -5. That is what's shown here. Okay, so they will keep moving like this. And at 5, what happens? They will meet. Okay, and then they will start moving like this. They will start moving like this. Okay, that is what is shown here. Okay, so this is what is called root locus. Now, what do you mean by locus? Locus means collection of points. So root locus means collection of roots. Roots of what? Roots of the characteristic equation. And what are the roots of the characteristic equation? They are nothing but closed loop poles. So root locus is nothing but the collection of closed loop poles as gain k varies from 0 to infinity. Okay, collection of the closed loop poles as gain k varies from 0 to infinity. That is what is root locus. Okay, it is the collection of or the locus of the closed loop poles as a system parameter. Normally, the system parameter, we take the system parameter to be the system gain. Okay, as it changes from 0 to infinity. 0 to infinity. Okay, now it is not always possible to substitute different values for k and find the closed loop poles, right? So there are some properties of root locus, right, based on which some rules have been formulated. So first of all, let us see what are the properties of root locus. So you see, KGS is the forward path transfer function, okay, and H of S is the feedback path transfer function. So this is in a closed loop configuration, and we know for a closed loop configuration, C by R will be what? G of S divided by 1 plus GSHS. Okay, so if you do that, you will get your closed loop transformation as KGS divided by 1 plus KGSHS. What is the characteristic polynomial here? 1 plus KGSHS. So what is the characteristic equation? 1 plus KGSHS equal to 0. Okay, so the characteristic equation is 1 plus KGSHS equal to 0. Keep in mind, S is a complex number. So GSHS is a complex function. Okay, so what will be KGSHS from this? It will be equal to -1, right? So as I said before, since KGSHS is a complex function, it has a magnitude and some angle. So what will be the angle? Angle of -1 is plus or minus 180, right? Because if you move in anti-clockwise direction, you get positive angles. If you move in clockwise direction, angles will be negative, right? So plus 180 is same as minus 180. Okay, so -1 means one angle plus or minus 180 or odd multiple of 180. Okay, so if you equate the angle part, you will get angle GSHS as plus or minus 180 into 2n plus 1. And what will be the magnitude? Magnitude will be equal to 1. Okay, so any value of S which satisfies this angle condition will be a closed loop pole. Okay, because 1 plus KGSHS is the characteristic equation. Roots of the characteristic equation are the closed loop poles. So if S equal to S1 is to be a closed loop pole, then it has to satisfy this angle condition. So this is called the angle condition, right? Keep in mind, at every closed loop pole location, it corresponds to a particular gain K value. Okay, so if S equal to S1 is to be a closed loop pole, then it has to satisfy this angle condition. The net angle at S equal to S1 has to be an odd multiple of plus or minus 180 degrees. Okay, that is what is mentioned here. Thus, a value of S is a closed loop pole if and only if
angle KGSHS is equal to plus or minus 180 into 2n plus 1. Okay, or I can say a value of S equal to S1. Say you are taking some particular point, S equal to S1. If and only if Kg of S1 and H of S1 is equal to plus or minus 180 into 2n plus 1. This is called angle condition, right? And modulus of KGS1 H1 HS1 must be equal to 1. This is called magnitude condition. Fine. Thus, if a value of S is substituted into the function KGSHS, a complex number results. If the angle of the complex number is an odd multiple of 180 degree, then that value of S is a closed loop pole for a particular value of gain K. And how can we determine the gain K? From this magnitude condition. Okay, this is the basic idea, right? So if S1 is to be a closed loop pole on root, or to lie on the root locus, then the net angle at S1 has to be plus or minus 180 degree. Okay, or odd multiple of that, right? So now let us take one example. Suppose we have this GSHS. Okay, so our GSHS is this. Okay, K into S plus 3 into S plus 4 by S plus 1 into S plus 2, right? So where are the open loop poles? Open loop poles are at S equal to minus 1 and S equal to minus 2. They are fixed. Okay, fixed and independent of K. Fixed and independent of K. Okay, that's constant. Now what will be the closed loop transfer function? G divided by 1 plus GSHS. So that means you will get K into S plus 3 into S plus 4 divided by this thing. Okay, so roots of the denominator will give you the closed loop poles. So as you can see here, the closed loop poles are a function of gain K. So as gain K changes, the closed loop poles will change. Okay, now let us check if minus 2 plus J3 is a closed loop pole or not. How will you check that? So this is the S plane, sigma j omega. Where is minus 2 plus J3? Say this is minus 2. Say this is J3. Okay, now I will mark the function, right? Function zeros are at minus 3 and minus 4. So say this is minus 3, this is minus 4, and the open loop poles are at minus 1 and minus 2. Say this is minus 1 and this is at minus 2. Okay, now how will you find the net angle at minus 2 plus J3? You join all the poles and zeros with that particular point. Okay, find what are these angles. Okay, so sum of all these angles must be equal to plus or minus 180. If that is equal to plus or minus 180, then minus 2 plus J3 is a closed loop pole. Okay, if you substitute that, you will see that the net angle at minus 2 plus J3 is minus 70.55, which is not equal to plus or minus 180. So what's the conclusion? Minus 2 plus J3 is not a closed loop pole for the given system, right? Now let us try if minus 2 plus J 1 by root 2 is a closed loop pole or not. As shown here, this is my minus 2 plus J 1 by root 2, right? These are the open loop poles are at minus 1, minus 2, and open loop zeros. If you remember, the transfer function was GSHS is equal to K into S plus 3 into S plus 4 divided by S plus 1 into S plus 2. Okay, so you are connecting, if you're connecting this particular point, that what is a point? Minus 2 plus J 1 by root 2 with all other open loop poles and zeros, right? Calculate what is theta 1, theta 3, theta 2, and theta 1, right? Add it up. If it makes 180 or plus or minus 180 degree, then that is a closed loop pole. Okay, otherwise it is not a closed loop pole. So if you calculate that, you will see that the net angle is 180 degree. So what's the meaning? Minus 2 plus J 1 by 2 root 2 is a closed loop pole. Okay, or it is a point on the root locus for a particular value of gain K. We don't know what's the value of gain K. We just verified the angle, net angle at that point as minus 180 degree. Now, how can you find the gain K from the magnitude condition? What is magnitude condition? Mod GSHS into K must be equal to 1, or K will be equal to what? 1 divided by mod GSHS. So it's substitute 1 divided by G of S is this point, right? GS hs at s is equal to minus 2 plus j 1 by root 2. Minus 2 plus j 1 by root 2. If you do that, you will get the magnitude as 0.33. Okay. So minus 2 plus j 1 by root 2 is a closed tube pole. And the gain at that point is 0.33. Fine. Okay. So now what next? Now we will see what are the root locus, what are the rules to sketch a root locus. Okay. So coming back. Or before, to summarize, given the open loop transfer function KGSHS, a point S1 in the S-plane is on the root locus for a particular value of gain K if the total angle contribution to S1 makes up to 2n plus 1, 180 degree, plus or minus. Okay. And how can you find the gain K? Is found by dividing the product of the pole lengths by the product of zero lengths. Why? Because how will you find K? K is 1 by mod GSHS. Okay. Say for example, your GSHS is say some S plus Z1 into S plus Z2. Some random example divided by S plus P1 into S plus P2. So when you take the magnitude, it becomes reciprocal. That is why it is coming like this, by dividing the product of the pole lengths by the product of zero lengths. So based on these properties of root locus, some rules have been laid down for sketching root locus for any given transfer function. Let us see that. So what I will do is that I will take up one particular example. Okay. So along with that example, I will explain what are the rules to plot the root locus part. Okay. So this example is particular in that all the steps of root locus are applicable. Okay. So whether all the rules are applicable or not depends upon the kind of transfer function that you have. Okay. So the particular example which I am going to discuss will have to get all these rules applied. Then only you can find root locus. Okay. So first step is root locus starts at open loop poles and ends at open loop zeros. Okay. Because you see from the magnitude condition. Okay. Or GSHS is what? GSHS is K into GSHS is minus 1. Okay. Or GSHS magnitude will be what? 1 by K. Okay. Now you put K equal to 0. When K equal to 0, what's the magnitude? When K equal to 0, what's the magnitude? Magnitude becomes infinity. Okay. Open loop magnitude becomes infinity. When can an open loop transfer function become infinite? An open loop transfer function can become infinite only at its open loop poles. Okay. Because what are poles? Poles are those values of S which make a transfer function infinite. Okay. So that means when K equal to 0, it corresponds to open loop poles. That is why it is written here. Starts at open loop poles. That means when K equal to 0. Okay. So when K equal to 0, the closed tube poles are same as open loop poles. Fine. Now we are varying and the final value is K equal to infinity. When K equal to infinity, what happens? It becomes 1 by infinity or the magnitude becomes 0. So when can an open loop transfer function become 0? Only at open loop zeros. What are zeros? Zeros are those values of S which make a transfer function 0. Right? So when K equal to infinity, it corresponds to the open loop zeros. Okay. So K equal to 0 corresponds to open loop poles and K equal to infinity corresponds to open loop zeros. So now let us take up this example. Okay. The given transfer function is GSHS equals K divided by S plus 2 into S square plus 2S plus 5. Okay. So step 1 is we have to determine where the root locus starts and terminates. So we have seen root locus starts at open loop poles and ends at open loop zeros. So step 1, root locus starts at open loop poles. Okay. Where are the open loop poles? S equal to 0, S equal to minus 2. And if you factor this, you will get minus 1 plus minus J2. Okay. So we have 4 finite open loop poles. Now root locus ends at open loop zeros. Where are the open loop zeros? Here we do not have any finite zeros. Okay. Here the poles are finite, but zeros are infinite. Okay. Why zeros are infinite? Why can I say like that? Because what are zeros? Zeros are those values of S which make a transformation 0. You put this S equal to infinity. What happens? Something by infinity becomes 0. So that means one possible 0 is infinity. Put this S as infinity. Then what happens? Again, transformation becomes 0. So another infinity. So there are two S terms here. So there will be two infinity terms there, right? So you will get infinity, infinity. Whether they are plus infinity or minus infinity, we have to wait for some more time. Okay. Once we complete the sketch, then only we can determine whether it is plus infinity or minus infinity. So here we have zeros at infinity and the poles are finite. That's the meaning of this statement. Root locus starts at open loop, finite and infinite poles when k equal to 0 and ends at open loop zeros, which may be finite or infinite. And that corresponds to k equal to infinity. Fine. Now, step 2. How many branches root locus has? It is obvious. Root locus starts from open loop poles. So there should be that many branches as the number of open loop poles. Or there should be that many branches as the number of closed loop poles. Because when k is equal to 0, open loop poles and closed loop poles are same. Right? So as k increases or as k is varied, closed loop poles will start moving. Okay? So the number of closed loop poles and number of open loop poles are the same. Fine. So next step is the number of root locus branches. Number of branches of root locus. Number of root locus branches. That is same as the number of closed loop poles. So here there are 4 finite open loop poles. So it will be 4. Okay. Now what next? Root locus is always symmetrical about the real axis. That is true for all the cases. Okay. Root locus will be always symmetrical about the real axis. Okay. Even though it is known, you have to write that. Root locus is always symmetrical about the real axis. Symmetrical about the real axis. Fine. That part is done. Now what next? We are determining the root locus on the real axis. How? Choose a test point. If the total number of real poles and real zeros to the right side of this test point is odd, then this point lies on the root locus. Okay. If the total number of real poles and real zeros to the right side of this test point is odd, then this point will be, test point will be on the root locus. What do you mean by that? Let me take some example. Some example, okay? It is not pertaining to this particular problem. Some random example I'm choosing. Say, for example, you have something like this. Okay. So we have to determine which part of real axis is on the root locus, right? So for that, what we have to do, we have to choose a test point. Okay. And what's the condition? To the right side of the test point, there should be odd number of real poles and real zeros. Put a test point here. How many real poles and real zeros are there to the right side of the test point? 0. Which is even. So that means this is not a part of root locus. Put the test point here. How many real poles and real zeros? 1, which is odd. Okay. So that means wherever I put the test point within this interval, it is a part of root locus, because always to the right side of the test point in this interval, I have 1 real pole. So that means this is a part of root locus. So root locus starts from open loop pole and ends at open loop 0, like this. Now put the test point here. How many real poles and real zeros are there to the right side? 2, which is even. That means this is not a part of root locus. Put the test point here. How many real poles and real zeros? 3, which means this interval is a part of root locus. So 1 starts from here, 1 starts from here. Test point here. There will be 4 number of real poles and real zeros to the right side. It is not a part of root locus. And finally, if you put here, what happens? In this interval, this will be a part of root locus, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There will be 5 real poles and real zeros. So 1 starts from here and terminates at this particular 0. Okay. So from here onwards, since there are 6, wherever I put the test point up to minus infinity, always to the right side, I have 6 real poles and real zeros. So that means it is not a part of root locus. So now if we come to our particular problem, poles are at 0, -2, and -1, plus minus j2. So this is the S plane. So this is 0. Here is -2, right? And then we have two complex conjugate. So that point is -1 plus j2 and -1 minus j2. Okay. So for this particular problem, take it as point here. Okay. To the right, to take it as point here. To the right side, always there should be odd number of real poles and real zeros if it is to be a part of root locus. So wherever I put my test point within this interval, always to the right side I have one real pole. That means this is a part of root locus. Okay, one will start from here, one will start from here. Okay, so the remaining portion on the real axis, negative real axis, not a part of root locus, because wherever I put my test point, always to the right side I have even number of real poles and real zeros. Fine. So we determined the root locus on the real axis. Right. Now what next? Now root locus approaches infinity along straight lines called asymptotes. So long as the root locus are along the real axis, it is guided, right? But once it leaves the real axis, it is more going into the S plane, right? It has to be guided by some straight lines, and those straight lines are called asymptotes. Okay. Now, how can you find the number of asymptotes? Number of asymptotes. Okay. How will you find number of asymptotes? It is given by P minus Z. What is P? P is the number of finite poles. And what is Z? Z is the number of finite zeros. So in our example, what is P? P was 4. There were 4 finite poles. One at 0, one at -2, and one at -1 plus j2, one at -1 minus j2. So P was 4. And what was Z? Z was 0. Because we didn't have any finite zeros. Our zeros were at infinity. So there will be 4 asymptotes. Right? Now these asymptotes will meet the real axis at a point called centroid. Okay, and as you know, along the x-axis, the y-coordinate is 0. So we just need to bother only about the x-coordinate or the axis. How will you find the axis? Axis is given by centroid. Axis is given like this: sigma p minus sigma z divided by p minus z. What is sigma p? Our poles are at 0 minus. You just add this up. Okay, 0 -2 -1 plus j2 -1 minus j2. So the imaginary terms gets cancelled, and you will get this as -4. Okay, and what is sigma z? Sigma z is 0 because we don't have any finite zeros. All our zeros are at infinity. Okay, so sigma p minus sigma z will become 4 -4 divided by 3. Sorry, -4 divided by 4. That becomes -1. So the centroid is at -1. Centroid happens to be at -1. Okay, so this is centroid. Right now, so there are 4 asymptotes. They will meet this centroid at some angle, and that angle is called angle of asymptotes. Angle of asymptotes. Okay, how will you find the angle of asymptotes? Plus or minus 180 into 2n plus 1. Do you remember where we get this expression from? From the angle condition, right? So plus minus 180 into 2n plus 1 divided by p minus 7. So we have 4 asymptotes, so we need 4 angles. So first you put n equal to 0. So when you put n equal to 0, what will you get? Plus minus 180 by 4. That means plus or minus 45 degree. Okay, so we got 2 angle of asymptotes. We have 2 more remaining asymptotes. So how can you find the angle for that? Put n equal to 1. Then what will you get? Plus minus 180 into 3 divided by 4. And that turns out to be plus minus 135 degree. Okay, so now we will make some faint construction lines. Okay, so this happens to be, say, plus 45 minus 45 135 minus 135, something like this. Okay, these are asymptotes. Okay, asymptotes are not a part of root locus. They are just guiding lines. Okay, so long as the root locus is on the real axis, it is guided by the real axis. Once it leaves the real axis, okay, once it leaves the real axis, that has to be guided by straight lines called asymptotes. That's what we determined right now. Fine. Now what next? You have to find the breakaway or breaking points. So now you see here, I told you that one root locus starts from here, one will start from here. Okay. So what happens as k increases, it keeps on moving, right? At some value of k, it will hit, right? And at that point, it is same. Because if you remember the example that we took here you can see when k was 25, both the closed loop poles were having the same value. They merged at the same value, -5 here. You can see here. Okay, so that particular point is called breakaway point. They will come, they will hit and separate apart. Okay, so that point is called the breakaway point. So next step is how to find the breakaway point, right? So what is breakaway point? They either lie on the real axis between two adjacent poles or zeros, right? Which are on the root locus or occurring complex conjugate pairs. Suppose you have two adjacent poles. Okay, like here. There are two adjacent poles, right? And they are a part of root locus. Then you get a breakaway point, right? Because they will come, hit, and move away. Suppose if the situation was like this. You had two adjacent zeros. Then what would have happened? Root locus will come, and if there's a break, will come and merge. Okay, one will come from here, one will come from here, they will hit, and one will go to this, terminate at this open loop 0, the other branch will terminate at this open loop 0. So in that case, you call it as a break-in point. Okay, so if you have two adjacent poles, you will get a breakaway point. If you have two adjacent zeros, you get what is called a break-in point. Okay, so that is what is written here. And they either lie on the real axis between two adjacent poles, the breakaway points, or zeros means breaking points, okay, which are on the root locus or occur in complex conjugate pairs. Fine. Now, they correspond to multiple roots of the Kac equation. At the breakaway points, both the roots are equal, right? That is what is the meaning. They correspond to multiple roots of the Kac equation. Now, how can you find the breakaway points? If the value of k corresponding to a root S1 of dk by d is equal to 0 is a positive real number, then S1 is an actual breakaway or breaking point. What do you mean by that? So what's the Kac equation here in our example? Our example is this, right? So what is the Kac equation? Kac equation will be 1 plus GSH is equal to 0. Okay, 1 plus GSH is equal to 0. Okay, so you will get S into S plus 2 into S square plus 2S plus 5 plus K equal to 0. Okay, so you separate out your K from this. What will be your K from this? K will be minus S into S plus 2 into S square plus 2S plus 5. Okay, you differentiate that and equate it to 0. dk by d is equal to 0. Okay, so when you equate that, in this example, you will get 3 candidate points. Okay, let me call that as S1, S2, and S3. Okay, so so how do I determine whether they are a breakaway or breaking points? For that, what you have to do? We have to substitute that into the K equation, and if the resultant is a positive real number, then the point S1 is an actual breakaway or breaking point. Okay, so if you solve this equation, let me write it here. So our Kac equation was 1 plus K divided by S into S plus 2 into S square plus 2S plus 5 equal to 0. Okay, or K will be what? Minus S into S plus 2 into S square plus 2S plus 5. Okay, so if you differentiate and equate it to 0, what will you get? You will get dk by ds equal to 0 will imply S equals minus 1 and minus 1 plus minus j 1.2247. Okay. Now, what about S equal to minus 1? Where does S equal to minus 1 lie? Somewhere here. Here. Okay. So, common sense says minus 1 is a breakaway point. Right? Because already it is a part of root locus. Right? There are two adjacent open loop poles and they are a part of root locus. So one point between the two open loop poles has to be a breakaway point. Common sense says so. If you have any doubt, what you have to do, you substitute this -1 into this K equation. Okay, into this K equation, right? And see if it is a real positive number. It will be. It will be. Okay, if you substitute that, it will be. Okay. What I want to say is that since there are two adjacent open loop poles, right? And since -1 is a point between the two open loop poles, that is a breakaway point. You need not substitute and solve. Common sense says so, right? Now, what about the remaining 2 points? -1 plus or minus j 1.2247. You have to substitute and see whether k is a real positive number. There is no other alternate solution. Okay, you have to substitute that into K equation. So when K is equal to, you find what is K when S is equal to -1 plus J 1.2247. That will be 6.25, which is a real positive number. Real positive number. Okay, so -1 plus J 1.2247 is a breakaway point. So can you tell me what about -1 minus J 1.2247? That will also be a breakaway point. Why? Because root locus has to be symmetrical about the real axis. Okay, so somewhere here, this is J 1.2247, and somewhere here we have minus J 1.2247. So this is another breakaway point. Okay, so this particular problem has 3 breakaway points. Okay, now what next? Determine the angle of departure of the root locus from the complex pole. Okay, so if the poles are complex poles, we call it as angle of departure. If the zeros are complex, if you have complex zeros, you call it as angle of arrival. Okay, that's the only difference. Now we have to determine the angle of departure. How? Angle of departure from a complex pole. How will you find that? That is 180 degree minus sum of angles of vectors to that particular complex pole from all other poles plus sum of angles of vectors to the complex pole from all zeros. What do you mean by that? Say for example, some random example I'm taking. Say you have a particular complex pole here, right? You want to find what is the net angle of departure from this particular complex pole. Okay, what you have to do, you join this particular complex pole with vectors. All other you join this particular complex pole with all other poles and zeros through straight lines called vectors. Calculate what's the angle. So let me mark this as θ1, θ2, and θ3. Okay, now how will you find what is that? 180 degree minus sum of angles from all other poles. So your angle of departure will be 180 minus, which are the poles? θ1 and θ3, plus sum of angles from all zeros plus θ2. Okay, so this will give you angle of departure, right? Now, if you want to find the angle of arrival, it is similar. 180 minus sum of angles from all zeros plus sum of angles from all poles. So now coming back to our particular problem, right? So here, this is a complex pole. So I want to find what is the angle of departure. Okay, so how to do that? You join this particular complex pole with all other poles and zeros. So here we don't have any zeros, we have only complex poles. So this is θ1, this is θ2, and this is θ3. Okay, so angle of departure will be 180 minus θ1 plus θ2 plus θ3. Okay, and that turns out to be minus 90 degree. Okay, so your angle of departure will turn out to be minus 90 degree. Angle of departure from where? From what was that complex pole? That was -1 plus J2. Okay, angle of departure from -1 plus J2 will be is equal to 180 minus θ1 plus θ2 plus θ3. and that will be equal to minus 90. So now can you tell me what will be the angle of departure from -1 minus J2? It will be plus 90 degree. Then only symmetry will be maintained about the real axis. Okay, it's obvious. You can, if you want, you can calculate in the same way. Okay, so angle of departure from -1 minus J2 will be plus 90 degree. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? It means that, so you see, we just marked here only two root loci branches, right? As K changes, how many ports do we have here? 4 closed loop ports. So 4 open loop ports. So all the ports will be moving simultaneously. K to K1, all the 4 ports will have some particular location. K to K2, all the 4 will move. Okay, so this is moving at a minus 90 degree. That's what we found here. Okay, minus 90. And here it will move at plus 90. Okay, so totally there are 4 open loop poles. There should be 4 branches. We just did only 2 branches. Okay, now we are trying to find root locus from the complex pole. Okay, so one will start from here, one will start from here. Now what happens? We had already found that's a breakaway point here. Okay, so here at -1, that's another breakaway point. What happens? One will move towards the top. Okay, and this will hit at this particular point. Let me change the color. Okay, and one will be coming like this. Okay, now what happens? Again, there's a breakaway point, right? So that breakaway point we are already found, right? Now what next? So we have determined the angle of departure. Now we have to see where the root locus crosses the j omega axis. How can you find that? You just have to substitute s equal to j omega in the characteristic equation. You equate the real part to 0, imaginary part to 0. Okay, because why we are putting s equal to j omega? Because when the root locus reaches the j omega axis, what is s? S is nothing but j omega. Its x coordinate is 0. Okay, so you put s equal to j omega in the characteristic equation and equate the real part to 0 and imaginary part to 0. That will give you the frequency at which it cuts the j omega axis and the corresponding gain k value. Okay, so what was the characteristic equation? Characteristic equation was s into s plus 2 into s square plus 2s plus 5 plus k equal to 0. So put j omega. Wherever you find s, you substitute j omega. J omega plus 2 into j omega square plus 2 j omega plus 5 plus k equal to 0. Okay, equate the real part to 0, imaginary part to 0. When you solve this, what will you get? Omega raised to 4 minus 9 omega square plus k equal to 0 and 4 omega cube minus 10 omega equal to 0. Okay, so 2 equations, 2 unknowns. If you solve this, what will you get? You will get your omega as 1.5811 radians per second and your corresponding gain k as 16.25. Okay, now it is easy, right? So what we have to do? So omega was 1.5881. 1.5881 means somewhere here, right? J 1.5811 and here it will be minus j 1.5811. So now onwards it is a Phrygian sketch. So from here root locus will be moving like this, going to infinity. Okay, then one another branch will be coming like this. Okay, one branch will be moving like this and one branch will be moving like this. Okay, so now you tell me what is the polarity of the infinity? This is plus infinity, then minus infinity, and minus infinity. Okay, so root locus terminates at minus infinity, and one will terminate at plus infinity. So this will complete the root locus construction. Okay. So if we try to do it in MATLAB, we will get its response like this. Okay. So as you can see here, root locus starts from here, from all the points. Okay. So when k equal to 0, the closed loop poles are same as open loop poles. Fine. and then as k changes, it keeps on moving. Okay, so I told you in the beginning that multiple information can be obtained. Okay, so you see, what is the value of k at that point? It is around 2. A in k is 2. Okay, so at that point you are having multiple rows. Okay, and what is the value? -1, right? So there are -1 and -1. Okay, so the two poles are at -1 and -1. That means you will get a critical damped situation kind of thing. Keep in mind, critical damping, what is the condition? The closed two poles must be real and equal. Okay, now what happens in this region along the x-axis, you can have overdamped performance, and along other portions you can have underdamped performance. But can you increase the gain to any value? No, because this is the j omega axis. Once it crosses the j omega axis, system becomes unstable. So up to what value can you increase the gain? Gain can be increased only up to say 7.9. Okay, beyond which system will be unstable. So from 0 to 7.9, you can operate the system. It will be stable. So all this information can be had from one single root locus plot. That's the advantage. Okay. Now that we have understood what are the rules for sketching root locus, let us take one more example. Okay. Suppose you are given your GSHS is given as k into s plus 3 divided by s into s plus 1 into s plus 2 into s plus 4. Okay, we have to find the root locus sketch for this system. Okay, keep in mind, GSHS is given to us. It is fixed. We cannot do anything on that. Okay, what we can do is that we can put it in a loop, and then you can modify the closed loop pole locations. Okay, so what's the first step? Root locus starts at open loop poles. Okay, so first step is root locus starts at open loop poles. Root locus starts at open loop poles. Where are the open loop poles? 0, -1, -2, and -4. Right? Root locus ends at open loop zeros. Ends at open loop zeros. Where are the open loop zeros? One is -3. Okay, and since there are 4 root locus branches, there should be 4 terminating points. So that naturally the remaining 3 terminating points will be infinity, infinity, infinity. Okay, so root locus starts at open loop poles and ends at open loop zeros. What next? Number of root locus branches. Root locus branches. How many number? There will be 4 number. Okay, what next? Root locus is always symmetrical about the real axis. Okay, now what next? We have to determine root locus on the real axis. Root locus on real axis. Okay, so this is my f plane, sigma j omega. Okay, so this is -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. Okay, so I have a 0 at -3. Poles are at 0, -1, -2, and -4. Okay, what you have to do? You have to take a test point. To the right side of the test point, there should be odd number of real poles and real zeros. So this is a part of root locus. This is a part of root locus. One starts from here, one starts from here. This is not a part of root locus. So one starts from here and terminates here. This is not a part of root locus, and then you have one infinite branch. It terminates at -infinity. Okay, so we have found that. What next? Number of asymptotes. Number of asymptotes. How will you find the number of asymptotes? Number of asymptotes is given by P minus Z. What is P? What is that? P is the number of finite poles, and it is the number of finite zeros. So we have 4 minus 1, which is 3. Okay. Now, centroid abscissa. How will you find centroid abscissa? Sigma p minus sigma z divided by p minus z. If you do that, you will get minus 1.33. Okay. So minus 1.33 is my centroid. Okay. Minus 1.33 is the centroid. Now what next? We have to find the angle of asymptotes. How will you find the angle of asymptotes? Angle of asymptotes is given by what? Plus or minus 180 into 2n plus 1 divided by p minus z, where n varies from 0 to 1. Okay. What is p minus z? It is 3. Okay. So you put n equal to 0, you will get plus or minus 60 degree. Now you need one more. So you put n equal to 1, take the plus angle, you will get plus 180 degree. So what is the angle of this line? It is already 180 degree. Okay. So this is already 180 degree. Now what more we need? Two asymptotes. One is one at plus 60 degree and one at minus 60 degree. So say this is plus 60, this is say minus 60. Okay, we have finished the asymptotes part. Right? Now what next? We have to see whether there are any breakaway points. So there can be a breakaway point here. Okay, because one starts from here, one starts from here, right? So there is a breakaway point. How can you find that? You have to find dk by d is equal to 0. Okay, so what is the Capstone equation? Capstone equation will be what? S into s plus 1 into s plus 2 into s plus 4 plus k into s plus 3 equal to 0. Okay, or your k will be what? Minus s into s plus 1 into s plus 2 into s plus 4 divided by s plus 3. Okay, put dk by d is equal to 0. Okay, you will get some candidate points, right? So substitute that back into k equation. If k is a real positive number, then that is a breakaway point. So if you do that, you will get your breakaway point as s equals minus 0.435. That will be somewhere here, breakaway point. Okay, so one will start from here, one will start from here. Okay, so this is my breakaway point. Now what next? Angle of departure. So here we do not have any complex pole. So that's why I told you before, all the rules may not be applicable every time. It depends on the given open loop transfer function. Okay, the previous example, all the rules were applicable. So here we do not have any complex pole. So angle of departure does not exist. Right? Now what next? We have to find at what value of frequency and gain k it will cut the imaginary axis. Right? So that can be found. And you will see that your omega will be close to 1.59 radians per second, and your corresponding gain will be 9.64. Okay, now and then onwards it is a freehand sketch. Okay, so this will be the root locus plot. To infinity, plus infinity, this goes to minus infinity. Okay, so one is plus infinity and the remaining two are at minus infinity. Okay, this completes root locus plot.